here in Rochester, New York. And today's demonstration will be on a mid skin fade. We're gonna we're gonna be doing a mid skin fade. You know, let's just get right to it. I have noticed that in the past, a lot of people that I've helped tend to have difficulties taking out the ball line. And that's one of the common questions that I get is, hey, Angel, how do you get the ball line out? So today's demonstration is going to be starting off with that and then gradually working our way up into the fade all the way to the top. All right. So one of the first things you're going to need is, I like to use, is a trimmer that is not zero gap. Get close enough, but not going to completely get to the skin. You're going to have some type of stubble still. And I like to determine where I'm going to start just by looking at the profile of the person, you know, gauging or measuring, starting from the ear to somewhere around the top of the head, around the crown, somewhere around here where I can notice where I'm going to make my first initial guideline. So with him, the mid skin phase starts right underneath his peak right here, and I'm going to continue it and follow it all the way around. I don't suggest anybody ever starting the ball fade like this, because this is going to create a harsh guideline that's going to be completely hard to get out. I suggest everybody turn their trimmer around and start the first initial guideline like this. We're going to continually go all the way around. You don't want to raise it too high because you don't want to turn it into a high fade. You want to come all the way around, making this guideline as straight as possible. Another way that you could tell is by the occipital bone. If it's lower or higher, you can usually tell by the occipital bone. With him, it's not my first time cutting him, so I definitely know that I have to stay a little above it. You guys can see that? If you have any questions or anything, just let me know. Willie will definitely let me know what's going on. Please don't be afraid to ask any questions. The dumbest questions is the ones that are not asked.
Video looks great, by the way.
Thank you. So this first initial guideline is very important. This is going to determine how the rest of the fade is going to go, how the flow of the fade is going to continue. You definitely want to have an even and balanced guideline all the way around. And I like to use a mirror a lot to make sure that that guideline is balanced all throughout the head. I would turn the plane all the way around, make sure that the guideline is evenly going through the whole head. The mirror is your best friend. Do not be afraid to use a mirror. I've heard a lot of people using the mirror in different ways, but one thing I do know is that the mirror does not lie. It will tell you exactly and show you exactly what you need to see. So continuing going and cleaning everything out really good. Now that I've made my guideline, I'm gonna go and continue to clean the rest of my canvas, making sure that there's no hair. I suggest using combs. Brushes are harder to disinfect and clean the proper way. Combs are not. They're more better for disinfecting and everything and being more cleanliness with the clients, and I just prefer combs. So in my next step, I am going to be using bald shaver. So what I like to use is a Fabulous FX shaver, electric shaver, and it's so easy. It's convenient. It gets right to the skin. I don't have to worry about going over it a whole bunch of times. Always make sure that your person is nice and clean, your canvas is clean, so you know you can see everything you're doing. Right, so at this point, I already made my first initial guideline. I cleaned everything underneath it, and now my second step is grabbing my electric shavers and coming up to a certain point, which I'm gonna explain. The way I do it is by I measure it, and I like to come up to maybe pinky's width underneath that first initial guideline, just so I could have. I know that's where I'm gonna start my fading process. So electric shaver. And notice I'm not going all the way up. I'm staying at a pinky's width underneath that first initial guideline and continuing that same width all the way around. Now, this haircut, not every single person that comes and sits in your chair is going to want to be completely bald out, especially this close. But there's a lot of guys that like those haircuts to last an extra few days. I get a lot of veterans that come and sit in my chair, and military veterans usually like to have the skin tight fade, and when I give it to them, they deserve it, right? Shout out to all my veterans out there. We thank you guys for your services, by the way. Arash here is a veteran himself. So continuing this, we're gonna be balding out all the way around. Notice how I'm staying at a pinky's width. I'm not going above that. Being careful with the ears. You always want to make sure that your client is safe, that they're not going to feel any pain, and you're going to draw them to come back to you because they feel safe. They know that you know what you're doing.
The blower you used, is that an air compressor that you have set up in there?
Yes, it's an air compressor. I used to use a hair dryer, but the hair dryer wasn't as powerful. And sometimes when I'm busy, I need to be able to see and get right to the point without having taken the time, especially when you got back-to-back clients. So the air compressor, the air hose is godsend. For me, is the best way to clean off everything instantly. So at this point, if you guys can see, I still have. Let me turn this off. I still have this line right here that's gonna be, for some people, it is very hard to get out. I'm gonna show you right now how you get it out without a problem. If you guys remember, I started with a trimmer that was not zero gapped. I did that for a reason, because when you start with a trimmer that's not zero gap, it's not gonna get you all the way to the skin, but you're gonna be able to make that first initial guideline without a problem, without hurting the client, and you're gonna be able to see what you're doing, getting all that hair out of the way easier. Once you come with the electric shaver, and the electric shaver leaves this annoying line that you can see very well. This is when a gap trimmer comes in hand. Gently and flicking at that line. You're not gonna go and press in and come all the way up. You're gonna start right underneath that line, and you're gonna be flicking that line out. You going like this, flicking, not going straight up, but flicking, right? Because what's gonna happen is, if you go straight up, you're gonna just make another guideline and do this procedure or this step. You're gonna have to do it again. So by flicking, you're preventing going up and you're actually getting that ball line the way you want. So we're gonna be doing that now. I kind of tend to stretch the skin a little bit just to make it easier on myself. And as you guys can see, I'm flicking. I'm using this flicking motion I'm starting underneath that line and I'm flicking towards it. All the way around. That line is gonna disappear without you actually having to do too much work or having too much difficulty out, especially if you're a busy barber. You know how much the time is actually precious to us. We don't have time to actually sit around and have a problem with something for too long. We need to be able to determine what the problem is and know how to fix it and get it out the way. So you see me, I'm doing a flicking motion. I'm not going straight up into the hair. And wherever I see fit, I'm stretching the skin, whether it's up or down. You'll see me put my hand down here, my finger, pull down a little bit. Or you'll see me put my finger up here, pull up, depending on which way I might need to do it. And that line is out, guys. I don't know if you could tell. Yeah, you can see it. That line is out. You know, obviously I have to finish all the way around, but it's a very easy step. And from here, starting to fade this way, now you don't have to worry about coming back down. Some people like to fade up, some people like to fade down. I like to start down, fade up, and then do touch up as I'm going, just to make my work more efficient for me with time. So now that we did that, we have that ball line out, which is one of the hardest things to do when you start in a fade. Now we're gonna do some clearing of the canvas, I like to call it, you know, where I come in with my 1.5 or the 3/16. I start open, always start open. And I'm coming up maybe like 1.5 to 2 inches at most. You'll see where a lot of his hair is a lot heavier up here. So we're gonna be fading in between all of this, from this to this. You're gonna give yourself at least 1.5 inches, at most 2 inches, depending. You're gonna know, looking at your client, where you need to stop, or you know, you're gonna be able to determine that yourself. Any questions, Willie?
We had a few that you already answered about the you know, what you use to blow the hair off, et cetera. So looking great.
Okay, cool. And just continuing the same guideline all the way around, making sure that it's all even, it's all balanced. And if you notice, once I get I'll come in tight, and then once I get to a certain point, I'll scoop out, because I don't want to go and drive my clipper into his head. I want to get to a certain point, and I want to be able to scoop out. So you'll see me doing this, the scooping motion around this guideline. You'll see me doing it a lot. And the rest of this will be taken care of by Shears. And I love using the shark fin shears because they make everything so easy to work with. The jobs, you know, you get these annoying lines that you have to take out, and I love erasing them with my section shears from shark fin, which is the reason why I'm here today. So we are cleaning the canvas again, getting up to a certain point, making sure this is all nice and neat. Making sure, protecting your client. Now at this point, I like to, since I already know what I did, there's a 1.5 open. I like to come and I like to do my third guideline. So this is my first, this is my second, and I'm gonna do my third right in between this with no guard, just the blade open. So for you guys that don't know, this is closed and this is open. All right. So I'm gonna be going up about 1/4 inch, not too much higher than a 1/4 inch, because I want to stay within my measurements here. And I'm gonna be doing a scooping motion as well, all the way around, making sure that this is all nice and clean. I get to a certain point when I'm gonna start scooping. I'm not going above that second initial, third guideline, and being consistent with it. One of the biggest things when it comes to fading, you have to be consistent. You have to stay within your own measurements, your visual measurements. And if you do that and find the steps that work for you, you'll have flawless fades every single time. Now, one misconception that people think or learn is that one way is the best way, and it's not true. I have different techniques. I have different skills that I will use depending on the hair, depending on the haircut, depending on the person's head, because you have to work with what you got and be able to get that look that you're looking for. And you have to have different skills and you have to have different techniques to be able to do that. So now what I'm doing is I'm going halfway. So that's closed. This is halfway. I'm closing it a little bit. And this right here, closing it halfway, will definitely get this bottom line out. And then after this, I'll be ready for my next step. Again, you see me, I'm not going in, I'm flickering. I'm doing a flick motion, being consistent with it, not forgetting that I don't want to go up higher than I already am. Making sure that consistently going through the head, I'm looking at his head and keeping that shape shape is also another big thing. So I'm making sure that I'm keeping that shape that I'm looking for. So going back to having more than one skill or one technique for fading or cutting hair, I watched a lot of different barbers and I learned from a lot of different people, different techniques, and I just applied them to my own and just worked with what I was comfortable with and then kind of just got good at. And then from there, I was able to apply more techniques. So it's good to have different techniques and being able to apply them the right way to the right person. So now, if you guys remember, I did this with the 1.5 open all the way around. Now I'm coming in with the one guard, the 1/8 guard, and I'm gonna start again open, and I'm gonna stay right underneath that guard, that 1.5 open. I'm gonna stay right underneath it. Flicking again, always flicking. I can't tell you enough. Flicking is a very important motion that you're gonna have to get used to. Is gonna prevent from you having to go up or lift the fade higher than you need to. I can express how much that, like how the flicking is actually very important. You're gonna start seeing that even though you're being consistent with your flicking and all that, you're gonna start seeing darker spots. You're gonna have to, come back and do a little more detailed work in certain areas. And I typically like to do that as I go, but I don't want to confuse anybody today. So I'm gonna take an extra minute and I'm gonna come back around and I'm gonna show you an easier way to do it without getting confused or lost in the fade.
I know for me, as I've been doing hair over the years, that scooping motion is one of those things that it's so easy to just miss one stroke, and now you got to take everything a half an inch higher or a quarter inch higher, right? I mean, just one
Yes.
little mistake, I'm not paying attention, and boom, now I have to raise the entire cut.
Yep, and that's why I've expressed it numerous times is because I know how important that is and how much of a difference that can make if you're not actually paying attention. And sometimes you're busy, you just want to get through the cut. You're not. Some things you may not always pay attention to small little details the way you should if you have more time. But as long as you follow those motions and you follow your steps, the haircut will almost come out flawless every time. And then if you have to go back and do some detail work, you always have a minute or two at the end of the haircut to do that. So my detail work I like to do as I go. So me knowing that I came up with the 1/8 open and I came up to a certain point. Now my detail work consists of me closing it as I go down, as I'm fading down now at this point, right? So I notice I have some dark spots that I need to take care of. There's a light line right here that I'm not comfortable with leaving. So I'm closing it halfway and scooping out again, having that motion in your wrist. It's gonna become second nature. You're gonna have to get used to it, but it's gonna be the best second nature motion you're gonna have. And as you see fit, you're gonna close more and more. You're gonna close the lever more and more as you see fit. Any questions, Willie?
Everyone just enjoying the class. We have students online, we have schools online, we have professionals that have been licensed since 1984. My home
Wow.
state, yeah, my home state's represented. Go Indiana/Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, okay.
Looking great, man. Thank you, Angel.
Yeah, thank you. And again, guys, the dumbest question is the one not asked. If you are thinking about something, I promise you 10, 15 other people are thinking the same thing. Don't be afraid to ask. Now, if you guys noticed, I closed it all the way and I'm just working on some details, getting these little dark spots out. And at this point, because I do have it all the way closed, I'm using maybe 2 or 3 teeth at the end of the blade on my guard. And I'm using it and I'm cornering it. I'm not completely using the whole entire blade. I'm cornering it. And I'm using maybe the 2 or 3 last at the end. Okay. It's going to prevent from you making another guideline and going up. It's going to be almost like texturing the side of the fade, if that makes sense. Now, these are the techniques that took me a while as a barber to learn and have somebody explain to me. So when I have somebody that I'm helping or I'm teaching to become a barber, these are the first techniques that I go to try to help them explain and get the gist of just being able to fade. Because the fade has to be consistent all the way around, right? You have to have that gradually go up, get darker and darker and darker. You don't want to have a patchy fade. You don't want to have lines all the way around. So right now I'm just doing my little detail work, going open and closing the lever as I see fit. And hair doesn't always grow the way it should. There's hairs that are going to grow the opposite way, come down, up. So you're going to always have to pay attention to the growth pattern on the fade, especially around this, where it's a lighter, just so that you could get those dark spots out.
Typically, how often are you cutting someone's hair who wants a haircut like this?
So on a good day, I could do maybe 13 to 15 haircuts. And I want to say maybe at least half of those, 7 to 8 of those are probably this type of haircut. Like I mentioned before, I do have a lot of veterans and I have a lot of, firefighters and stuff that come here. So, and a lot of them typically like higher fades. They like to stick with the high and tight. And I don't mind them because I could do them in 15 minutes. But, so I already have a good gauge on how fast I could go and what I need to do to get through the haircut, when I need to, speed up, when I need to, if the person tells me, a lot of people do come in and tell me, hey, I need this haircut, but I only have 25 minutes. Is it possible? And I'm like, of course. You have to be able to know that yourself. You have to be able to gauge yourself and know if you could accomplish that within the time that they're asking you for. You don't want to tell somebody you could get them in and out in 15, 20 minutes and stay there for 45 minutes and not being able to accomplish what they're asking you for. So now I did the one open and closed, did some detail work, but I still found that in the back of his head, I still had some dark spots. That's when the 0.5 guard comes in, the 1/16. You'll open and close it as you need it. It's not going to take a lot because you already had the fade pretty much done. You're just going to be doing a lot of touch-up work. And the reason I go back to the 1/16 is just because it'll get a little bit closer as I come down, and I'll be able to get some of these dark spots and, little faint lines that I'm still seeing in the back of his head. And I'll gradually close it as I need. Never forgetting that swooping motion, that flicking motion, using my corners more than anything else. If you're looking at it, it may look like I'm using the whole thing, but in reality, I'm not. And now I pretty much got this covered. This side, you guys can see this fade is coming out so nice and clean. It's, it's a fadeaway 5-5 fade. So now, once I get to a certain point, I really don't like going above a 1.5 or a 2 guard when it comes to fading, because I feel as I could finish the rest of the fade and gradually fade into the top with my texturizing shears. Of course, being sharp fin shears, the best. And this is where I get to that point. Now, you guys see this heavy line right here is all the way around his head. One thing that's going to be very important once you get to this step is not grabbing. Sorry about that. You're going to grab your comb and you're going to work straight up. You're going to be working straight up. You don't want to work into the head because then it'll change, the fade will turn into a fade from a fade going up and fading in really nice to a egg shaped fade, if that makes sense. And that's not the look we're going for. Some people do like that look, but that's not the look we're going for today. So I typically, just brush down the hair as much as possible. Some people, you may have to wet the hair a little bit to give it a little bit more weight and keep it where you want. And if I need to get to that, you'll see me do it. But just be sure that I'm not going into his hair. I'm going straight up. I'm keeping this. I'm going with a nice flow, and I'm going straight up, and I'm keeping my texturizing shears right at the bottom of the comb. I'm not doing all this. I'm not doing all of that. I'm keeping it right here. Being consistent with that is going to help you a lot keeping this fade the way you want. If you guys notice, this is already, I only had, 3 or 4 strokes, right?
Can you spin him a little forward? And then let's see if we can get there we go. There we go. Thank you.
Yep. So I'm staying right at the bottom of the comb and I'm working my way up straight. And you see how that's already starting to fade in really nice. Using the right side of the comb also is very important. I'm using the wider tooth side versus the closer tooth side. You know, obviously I want to grab as much hair as I possibly can as I'm going up, so I don't have to struggle. So using this side of the comb is actually the best. And I love this comb. This is the comb that I have like 50 of these combs because it's a comb that I like using. And him being that he likes to spike his hair up, he doesn't like to have lose a lot of his weight around this area. I'm not going in. That's one of the other reasons is that you have to know the haircut and know the style, how that person is going to style the hair. So I'm not going to be going up into the hair too much. I'm going straight up, keeping it right here. I'll move this way if I have to, but I'll never move up or down because I feel like you'll go into the haircut too much if you do that. And you'll lose control of the fade. All right, so he has salt and pepper hair, which I love. A lot of people like that. So I hope you guys can see how flawless this is right now. It's smooth. There's a smooth fade going up. Maybe can you guys see that?
I can. So I'm assuming everyone else can.
Okay, perfect. I'm just trying to have everybody see exactly what I'm talking about when I'm saying a smooth fade. You know, he does have a lot of salt and pepper going on. So it may look like there's darker spots than others, but this fade is actually very smooth, coming up and staying around this area. So as we work around, you start brushing the hair towards the way that you want it. I want it to come down, so I'm combing it down and just continuing the same technique. And there's gonna be times where, you know, you'll come into a certain spot, um, and you'll want to almost like pinpoint cut with your texturizing shears. You know, that's a technique that you could develop as time goes, you know, and as more skill you have as a barber. You'll start noticing what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what's easier for you, and you'll gain more confidence and be able to determine what techniques work for you or not. You know, having an arsenal of different techniques is not a bad thing. As a barber, you need to have more than one technique to be able to accomplish certain haircuts. So as I go around, I'm still doing the same technique. It's still the same thing, staying consistent with it all the way around. Grabbing my shears and my comb the same exact way. Any questions, Willie?
Looking good.
All right, sounds good.
It's hard to ask questions when you're answering all of them before you have a chance, right? That's great. It's great.
That's good. That makes me feel good. That means I'm doing my job the right way.
Yes, sir.
So I'm just going back and then looking at the head, like I mentioned earlier, you do want to keep a shape, right? You want to be able to look at this fade from the back and see it nice and, you know, rounded where it needs to be. Look at it from, you know, the profile view and be able to look at it and be like, oh, wow, that's a really nice fade. So the shape is really important. So what I'm doing now is I'll actually move his head physically with my hands to see, where I need to go back and do some touch up. You know, I'll still, if I had to, I'll go up a little higher than I would want to in certain areas just to make sure I'm keeping that shape. But I'm lightly going over these areas. I'm not chomping away too much. I'm keeping it, and I know that he likes to have his hair spiked. So I'm kind of visualizing his hair being spiked as I go, right? And I'm not doing too much to the front. The front I kind of leave as is, just because I know that he likes to spike it up, and when it's spiked up, it looks really cool. So he needs that front wig to be able to have that look that he goes for, right? So the fade at this point is pretty much done. Now at this point, when you're done with the fade, always go back, look at your work. I like to say, look at my canvas. I like to look at this as art. So I go back and I look at my canvas, and then I determine if I need to do some touch-ups, where I could maybe work on some areas. If you have time, you'll know what to do. And this is pretty much it. I hope you guys at least took one thing with you, if not all. I would love if you guys could take and learn everything that I spoke about. But if you're able to use at least one technique, take one technique with you and use it for your career, use it to make your life easier and better. I hope that I did that. I hope that I service you guys in the right way. At this point, his haircut is completed. The only thing I would have to do now is to style it. And actually, maybe erase this a little bit so it doesn't look so hard. And that is it, guys. I hope everybody was able to understand everything. I hope everybody was able to catch everything I was talking about.